Hello everyone and welcome. Today I have something a little bit different. We're going to talk about the Hanafuda cards. And originally they were supposed to be just a card game, used for card game, but eventually they started to be used as a divination method. Let's talk a little bit about these cards. First of all, these are only the first 6 months. Have the other 6 months here. We're gonna move on to those once I'm done with these. And so pretty much what I would like to do is give an explanation of what the cards are. Now this is not an explanation as to how to play the card. There's like a Hanafuda game. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how to use these cards for divination. So each month has 4 cards, okay, assigned to those months. And the most important, or the first card, is either an animal or something different, like a person or a bridge or a curtain. There's something different about the card, and it's like the most special card of the set of that month. Then the second most special is the one that has a ribbon with either writing or no writing. The reason why there's no writing is because it was lost over time, or because in different areas there were different things that they would put on them. I will talk about the ones with nothing on them, what some of the words that were there could have been, or we know have been, in different areas of Japan, so that we can use that for the purpose of divination as well. And then you have the last 2, which are the shaft, and which are technically not as important if you're playing the game. However, they usually had a poem attached to them. Now, some of them have poems that we know we can track back to them, and some of them we do not know for sure which poem originated the cards. However, we do have poems from, the 700s, the 900s, that talked about very particular subjects associated with this flower, with these cards. To summarize, there are 3 types of cards per month: a main card, a ribbon, and a shaft. So let's start with these first 6 months. We have January, February, March, April, May, and June. So let's start with January. So January is the crane and the pine. So what does this mean? First of all, January is the first month of the year. We can see that there's a sun here. The sun in Japan tends to be represented as red or orange red. This is why you have it in the Japanese flag. And the crane symbolizes, along with the pine and the turtle, longevity, immortality, 1,000 years. So 1,000 years means immortality, right? Back in the day is what it meant. Now, before the shaft, let's talk about this ribbon card over here, okay, which is the Akayoroshi. It says Akayoroshi on the ribbon, which means, oh, this is truly wonderful. And as you can see, this one says the same thing. So January and February have the same thing on the ribbon. We don't know why. Maybe one of those was lost and then they replaced it. Unknown. But they both say Akayoroshi, right? So, which means truly wonderful. So something truly wonderful has happened. If it's the answer to a question, then it's a yes. It's just a wonderful card. January will also mean new beginnings, something starting anew, like a new moon. Okay, everything is new, everything is fresh. That kind of vibe. And yes, now let's move on to the shaft. And these are just pine trees, right? The representation of pine trees. And there is a poem that is associated with these cards. We know this one for sure, which says something like, when spring comes, the green of the evergreen pines gets even greener. So it's like, okay, if you thought that something was good, it's going to get better. Something like that is what the meaning of these cards would be, right? The shaft of January. Summary: January, the crane and the pine trees. The crane and the pine trees, along with the turtle, all means longevity, immortality, and well, overall good luck, because things that exist for a very long time are good luck. The sun is shining in the first card, meaning everything is going to be all right. The second card says Akayoroshi, which means truly wonderful, meaning that something truly wonderful is about to come. The shaft, the last two cards, come with a poem that tells you that if everything is going well now, it's about to go even better in the near future. And let's continue with February. Now, February is the nightingale. This bird is a nightingale or a meshiro. Nowadays, it's just called the nightingale, right? The nightingale and the plum tree, right? Plum in Japanese is ume. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the nightingale. So first of all, this bird is believed to be a kind of goddess of good luck. Okay, so again, if you are getting this card, it means good luck. Okay, and then we have the Akayoroshi, okay, which is again a truly wonderful. The meaning is truly wonderful. And then the meaning, the poem that we have for the shaft. The song of the nightingale can be heard. The plum flowers get lost in the snow. Summary: February, the nightingale and the plum trees. The nightingale symbolizes a goddess of good luck. The plum trees are the first to bloom in a year. So seeing their flowers reminds you that spring is near and that winter is about to end. The ribbon card says Akayoroshi, which means something truly wonderful is coming your way. Let's move on to March. Okay, March is the cherry blossoms and the curtain. What does the curtain represent? Well, the curtain represents not just the curtain that is hung, in order to have a celebration, but also kimono, clothing flowing, like beauty, women, springtime, love, all of these kind of things that we associate with spring. It was also something that they would do in Japan. Also, the color purple is nobility, and it's right here. So it's like looking at a noble woman, walk under the cherry blossoms. And now, as you can see, this ribbon says something different. And the word that it says right here is, and again, it's difficult to read, miyoshino. Miyoshino is what it says. Now, what is miyoshino? Beautiful Yoshino. And Yoshino is a very well-known mountain in Nara. Now, Nara was once the capital of Japan, and all the people that had something to write were in Nara. And what was in Nara? There was this mountain, Mount Yoshino, that had what? The cherry blossoms. So this is why the cherry blossom became such a popular flower. So we don't have a poem directly associated to this month. However, I do have one that was written in the year 900 that's, on par with what we're talking about. This poem that I'm going to be reciting now, it's by Fujiwara Toshiyuki, and it says the following. Looking at Mount Yoshino, I lament the end of spring. And this particular poem talks about the fleeting nature of life. And this is another thing that you can associate these sakura cards with. That's the thing with the cherry blossom. It only blooms for about 2 weeks and then it disappears. It's here today, but might not be here tomorrow. Summary, March. The cherry blossoms and the curtain. The first card has the cherry blossoms and the curtain. The curtain can symbolize a festival, a party, or a birthday. It can also symbolize the beauty of a woman. It symbolizes a kimono in the spring, ladies walking around with their beautiful clothes on. And spring, of course, is the season of love. That was so in Japan as well. The second card is one that is connected to a mountain in Nara where all the lovers would meet under the cherry trees. The last two, the shaft, these cards are connected to a poem that talks about the brevity of life, how the cherry blossoms, for example, only bloom for 2 weeks in the year. So for 50 weeks in a year, they gather their strength to put out the flowers, and then those 2 weeks they show off the beautiful flowers, but then it's quickly gone. So perhaps it can mean that you're missing your youth, that you're feeling like life is passing by very quickly. Okay, so let's start with April now. So we have the cuckoo and the wisteria tree. So let's start with, that's the animal and the flower of April. Now, let's start with the cuckoo. The cuckoo comes from a Chinese legend, and apparently this was an actual king that lived in China that had family in Kyoto, and this is how the legend ended up in Japan. This Chinese king, after abdicated, he decided to turn into a bird, into a cuckoo, and it would sing every time that spring would come. Now, I know what you're thinking. Didn't we talk about spring in the past? Yes. As the years went by, sometimes people would say that spring was in January. Sometimes they would take it as February 3rd for Setsubun. Sometimes they would say that spring would start with the cherry blossoms. In this case, because of this Chinese legend and that is associated with the wisteria tree and the cuckoo, it says that the cuckoo sings when spring starts. So maybe different countries had different interpretations of what spring was, but we're still in springtime, okay? All of this has been springtime. And so this is the cuckoo that brings good luck. It's the cuckoo that is a king that is announcing that spring is starting. And then you have the wisteria. Now the wisteria, unlike all the other kind of happy flowers, the wisteria has this meaning of it cannot bloom without adversity. So if it's blooming, and as you can see in the cards it is, it means that you have gone through, or some kind of adversity is coming your way. Now this is not a terrible tower moment or anything like that. This simply means like in terms of the wisteria tree, that in order to grow, you need to face some challenges. And this is exactly what happens with the tree, which if it's too comfortable, it will not bloom. So the farmers and the people used to like cut little slices of the roots so that the tree would bloom, otherwise it wouldn't bloom. What about the ribbon card? There's nothing on the ribbon card. I did some research into this, and it seems like the only word that I see associated with the April cards is Fuji, as in Mount Fuji. Now, Mount Fuji is like the holiest of mountains in Japan. It's like the father of the country, and it's also kind of like a wish fulfiller, someone who like you pray to and it grants you the wishes. So if you get this, perhaps there's a wish that you want to come true. It's not saying that it will come true, it is saying that perhaps there's a wish or something that you would like to happen. And in general, as you can see, all of these ribbons, right, they have like something like a wish in them. These kind of ribbons are used in July during Tanabata season, where the children and the grown-ups write their wishes down and then they hang them from bamboo. It's a long story, but this is where those ribbon and that ribbon shape comes from. As for the wisteria tree shaft, the poem associated with those is the following. The waves of wisteria by the pond in my house have bloomed, so I can't wait for the cuckoo to come to my home already. So again, it's saying that it's like it's time for spring. Why isn't spring here? And spring can be many things, right? This is giving a little bit of I'm waiting. I'm kind of uncomfortable waiting for the cuckoo to sing, and so that my wish can come true or something like that. So in general, April has any of the April cards can symbolize having to wait, having to put up with some challenges, having a wish that is just unfulfilled, but it's coming. Summary: April, the cuckoo and the wisteria tree. The wisteria tree is a very strong tree, but one that needs challenges in order to bloom. The cuckoo symbolizes a king that arrives into your life to bring good news, to bring the spring. The last two cards of the wisteria can mean that you're waiting for that cuckoo to arrive. All of the signs are there, but nothing is happening. The ribbon means a wish for these things to happen. This good luck to finally reach you. Okay. Now let's move on to May. This is the Iris and the Yatsuhashi, and we're going to talk about that. And here we don't have an animal, we have Yatsuhashi. Now what is Yatsuhashi? Sure, let's start with the 8 bridges. Yatsuhashi means literally 8 bridges. Now these 8 bridges come from a very old story called the Tales of Ise. And in that Tales of Ise, there is a story about a group of men on a pilgrimage trying to attain enlightenment. And so the 8 bridges that you cross, 8 is always like a very magical, it's like 3 in the West, right? So in this pilgrimage and people trying to attain enlightenment and so on, they were on a very long journey, and eventually they found this purple iris flower, this iris, and the iris told one of the men in the story that, oh, I have already become enlightened, but you haven't. And it was not mocking the man, but the man felt like, oh no, this flower is enlightened and I'm not, and it was kind of like upset about that. So this could be, so May could be talking about a spiritual journey, very much spiritual journey, because that is what Yatsuhashi, I would say it's one of the most spiritual symbols here in the Hanafuda, in the whole of the Hanafuda deck, not just these cards, but all of the cards. Very spiritual, this particular card, right? The special one. Now, what about the ribbon card? Okay, so I found three or four different words that are all very similar. One of the words that could go here in this ribbon is iris, just this particular iris. Then is kakitsubata, which is a type of iris, and then the last one is purple, just the color purple, just purple, murasaki. Now, as for the in general, the word for iris can also be shobu, which can also mean victory. So in general, it can also have something to do with, like, just getting any of the cards for May is like achieving a victory over something. Yes, the poem, right? Let's not forget the poem. As for the poem for the shaft of the May iris flowers, we have the following. And this one we know for sure was associated with the cards. I have a wife that is as close to me as silk is to my body. I feel sad to have traveled so far. So, like I said, this Yatsuhashi is inspired on this story about the men going on a very long journey to become enlightened. And the poem associated with the shaft is connected to that particular tale. And in this case, it's a man that's missing his wife. So if we're talking about the shaft, if you got one of the shafts in particular, it could also be someone who misses their boyfriend, their spouse. Someone is missing someone. Summary: May, the Iris and Yatsuhashi, the 8 bridges. The first card is a card of enlightenment, your path towards enlightenment. All of the flowers, the iris flowers, are supposed to symbolize the journey towards becoming enlightened. The last two, the shaft, can also be connected to missing someone, missing a spouse or a lover. And of course, the ribbon, as usual, means a wish for enlightenment, a wish for protection, a wish for spirituality, a wish to being able to reach your goal. Okay, so these are the interpretations for the cards of May. And I'm going to take a break after I do June, by the way, because I've been talking for a very long time. Okay, and now let's go with June. Okay, in June we have the peony and the butterflies. So, the animal is the butterfly, the peony symbolizes beauty. It also symbolizes strength because it's known as the king of flowers, not the queen, but the king of flowers, the peony. Okay, now there for all these cards, but most precisely for the last two, for the shaft. Sorry, I'm gonna do the shaft first. There is a very well-known saying, and now this poem or this saying is not directly associated with the cards. However, it is so well known that it has to have originated these peony images. And the saying is, stand like a peony and sit like a peony, which means this symbolizes the beauty of women. So all of these cards kind of have to do with the elegance of being a woman, being seen as very beautiful, being seen as someone very powerful as well. It can mean power if we're talking about a masculine energy. It can also mean power because it symbolizes the flower. Yes, we haven't talked about the butterfly. We will in a second, but the flower symbolizes power. It symbolizes beauty. It symbolizes perfection, also known as anti-inflammatory flowers. So perhaps if you are asking about health, this is acknowledging that there's some kind of healing that's going to happen very soon. These two are mostly associated with beauty. This one is the animal card, so mostly you would associate it with the animal as a main focal point of the card. And then you have the ribbon. So as for the ribbon, right, what can be said, can be written on this ribbon? Sometimes it's Botan or Peony. Sometimes it's Fukugi, which means wealth and good fortune. And sometimes it's Hano, which means king. So lastly, we're going to talk about the butterflies. Now, I know what you're thinking, oh, butterflies are transformation. Yes, butterflies are transformation, but they also symbolize the ephemeral, much like the cherry blossoms. They have that same kind of meaning, that here one day, gone the next, kind of an ephemeral meaning. But they can also mean the number 80, because the word for butterfly in Chinese is Ho, which is the same as 80 in Chinese. It can also mean longevity. So this card is longevity, this one is strength. These two are more connected to beauty. Summary, June, the peony and the butterflies. The peonies symbolize beauty, and they also symbolize strength. They are known as the king of flowers. They can also symbolize perfectionism. Stand like a peony, sit like a peony. They can also represent femininity. The butterflies can symbolize not only change, but also brevity, something being ephemeral, being there one day and gone the next. The butterflies can also symbolize longevity, because the name for butterflies in Chinese also means 80. Hello, I'm back. Okay, and here we are with the rest of the cards: July, August, September, October, November, December, and these two, which are blank cards. So of course, for the card game, these meant any cards, whereas when we're using them for divination, I would say that they're very similar to the moon card in tarot, as in, we don't want to tell you, we can't tell you, it's something that you're going to have to wait and see, divine timing, and so on and so forth. As always, a blank card means not right now. Okay, so let's get started with this second part with the explanation of the Hanafuda cards. So let's start. You're going to see that some months are a little bit different, and we're going to explain why in a moment. So let's start with July. So July is the boar and the bush clover. These are called bush clovers. So the overall meaning of this plant is perseverance, strength, and also the brevity of life. So the bush clover, this one, is a very resilient plant, and also it wards off bad spirits, and it's also flexible. We're going to talk about flexible plants in August as well, but in general, flexible means, you know, you can adapt easily to any circumstance. Now, what about the most important card, which is the animal card, the boar in this case? So the boar is a divine messenger, a messenger for the gods. It also means it's supposed to bring victory to a war. It's also good luck. It's also representing, I don't know if you can see, but it's kind of like laying down, like the boar is like resting. So it can also mean to rest after a very strong battle. It's kind of like the layer where the beasts become peaceful. Yeah, the boar's bed, Like this is also called the Boar's bed. So where after fighting you can relax. So overall, it's the meaning is resilience. This card in particular means victory. It means good luck. And now when it comes to the ribbon and or the wish, we can see that it also has no words, but in the past it could have had the words hagi, which means bush clover, or autumn, but also memories. This one's a little bit different from the others. Yes, autumn. We were just talking about spring, and now we're in autumn in July. You're going to see with other cards, such as especially the November ones, that over the years, it seems like the months, the cards assigned to particular months are not exactly those of the month. I would say that the first 4 months were definitely, you know, correct, but then these other cards might have belonged to other months, or at least the imagery belongs to other months. We don't know why, so things change. This is also why the ribbons don't always have words on them, because we cannot, they were different words and we cannot know for sure what was written in them. Okay, now let's move on to the poem. Now, there is no assigned poem that we know for sure. However, there is one from Fujiwara no Taika that says, the color of autumn bush clover is truly touching, mirroring the brevity of my own life. So it's like a really heavy topic here. So these two could very well be connected to resting, right? We had the beast resting. So that's July. Victory, resilience, and also perhaps coming to an end. Something coming to an end, seeing that something was short, it happened too fast, and you look at the plan and you're like, oh boy, you know, everything went by so quickly. Summary, July, the bush clover and the boar. Now the first card is the Boar, which is a messenger for the gods, and it also is supposed to bring about victory. Some people say that it's resting, so it can also symbolize a beast becoming peaceful. The bush clover is a very flexible plant, and it can also be used to ward off spirits. So overall, it means resilience, it means protection, and it can also have to do with the brevity of life, according to the poem connected to this. You look at this plant and you feel like your life is going by very quickly. Okay, let's move on to August. And yes, you can see that there are animals and they're not the first card. What happened? I don't know. This is how this works, okay? The most important card here is called the Monk. Why is it called the Monk? It's because the moon looks like the head, the bald head of a monk. Sorry, it's called the monk or the priest. And this is like the most important one. It also, like if you know a little bit about Buddhism, there's this whole very famous teaching about not confusing the moon with the finger with the moon, the finger of the master with the moon. So it can also have like a very spiritual meaning. Also, you know, a monk, a priest is also someone who has dedicated themselves to spirituality. But overall, the August cards have two things, and that is the moon and the Susuki grass. Now this moon, of course you interpret at will, but this moon is not this. It's not like the blank cards. It usually is connected to spirituality. And this is why it's also called the monk or the priest. Okay. Now, what about the second card? The second most important card is the geese leaving, seeking shelter. Summer is ending and it's time to go. All of these have the Susuki grass. This black thing that you see here is actually dark green, and it's the Suzuki grass, which is also known as the pampas grass. If you're, I think in America, you have it, you know it as pampas grass. Here it's called the Suzuki grass. And again, one of the main characteristics is that it bends. It's flexible, just like the bush clover, right? It's flexible. It goes with the wind. It doesn't break like an oak tree. It moves with the changing seasons. And then you have the chef. It comes in the form of a song, an old traditional song that goes something like, in Musashino, there are no mountains for the moon to enter, so it emerges from the grass and it enters the grass. Now, what is Musashino? Musashino is what today is Tokyo. So back in the day, look at this picture. This is what Tokyo used to look like, okay? When the cities were in Kyoto, in Nara, and in other places, this is what Tokyo used to look like, okay? It was just a plateau, the Musashino Plateau. There were no mountains, and so the moon would emerge from the grass and enter the grass. And it's really interesting because the rest of Japan, like one of the main characteristics of Japan is that there are mountains everywhere. And so to have a plateau like the Musashino Plateau, aka Tokyo, was very rare. And so this is the song that is connected to the chef of August. What else? One last thing about Susuki, or the pampas grass. It was also used as roofing material for houses, so it can also symbolize protection. Summary: August, the Susuki grass and the moon. Now, the first card is called the monk or the priest because it's supposed to look like a shaved head of a monk. So it's always highly connected to spirituality. The second card, with the geese seeking shelter or seeking a warmer weather, can mean just leave. And the last two, well, they all contain the Suzuki grass, which is very flexible. And it's also used, it was used for roofing, and so it can mean house protection. Overall, either a meaning of spirituality or protection and being flexible with the things that happen. Now, let's move on to September with the chrysanthemum and the sake cup. So the sake cup has some words on it, and the word is longevity. Why is there a chrysanthemum and a sake cup? What are we talking about? Okay, we're talking about a Chinese legend. Surprise. According to legend, there was a king who collected the dew from the leaves of the chrysanthemum in autumn and drank that mountain dew, that leaf dew from the chrysanthemum plant, and it became immortal. The king became immortal. So the sake cup symbolizes immortality, and it says actually longevity on the cup. So this is like the main idea of the chrysanthemum. Also, if you know anything about Japan, you know the chrysanthemum is a very important plant because it symbolizes the emperor, right? The royal family and the emperor. So it's one of the most noble, it's like the most important flower. So it also is connected to health, like I said, longevity. They would use this as a medicinal plant. And it's also used to ward off bad luck and spirits and so on. Why was it assigned to September? Now there's a reason. 9/9, so September 9th, is kind of like is the last of the 5 festivals. that they would have throughout the year. And 99 is like bad luck. And so you would use the chrysanthemum to ward off the bad spirits. Just like with the bush clover, but this is like a more important flower because it was connected to this legend. And so because it was connected to this legend of immortality, that's probably the reason why the emperor and the emperor's family have taken this flower to symbolize them. So it's a very noble plant associated with longevity. And the ribbon itself usually said longevity, nobility, or just chrysanthemum. Always remember that the ribbons can also symbolize like a wish, right? So perhaps if, this is a wish for health, just like this is a wish for victory, right? We'll talk about this later. So it can also symbolize a wish. Now we have the shaft. The poem associated with these is, in autumn it seems that only the chrysanthemum flower is visited, so people yearn for autumn twilight. So this could mean something like loneliness, wanting to reach out. It could be romantic loneliness, it could be friendships, wanting a friend, wanting or missing a friend, wanting or missing a loved one. So just feeling lonely, not solitude as in the hermit, but actually just loneliness. Summary: September, the chrysanthemum and the sake cup. So the chrysanthemum usually represents trying to get healthy. The sake cup also represents drinking your medicine. In general, it's a flower of protection. We use it to ward off spirits. And it's also a very powerful plant, and this is why it was chosen by the Emperor of Japan. It means nobility, it means health and longevity. Okay, let's move on to October, and this is a very sad story. October has like a very sad story background as to why the maple and the deer are there together. So during the Nara period, there was a boy. He was 13 years old. This is important. And he was studying. He was like practicing his calligraphy. And at some point, a deer showed up and tried to eat his calligraphy homework. And the boy threw a brush towards the deer, and unfortunately, the deer died. Now, a lot of people are like, well, maybe it wasn't a pencil or a brush, it was like a paperweight or something, because it killed the deer. But anyway, this is terrible because deer are considered messengers to the gods, so unforgivable that in a holy place like Nara was during the Nara period, which was the capital and also had like all of the temples. Unforgivable thing, even though it was a young boy and he was sentenced to be buried into a hole that was 13 shaku. I think this was a little bit more than 2, it was about 3 meters deep, and it was based on his age. So if he would have been younger, it wouldn't have been such a deep hole, but they put the dead deer at the bottom, and they put the boy alive on that, on the deer, and then they covered the hole with pebbles. And of course the boy was buried alive and died. Now, before this all happened, the mother of the boy was like begging to everyone, please don't kill my boy, it was a mistake, I'm sorry. But it was everybody was very afraid of someone killing the messenger for the gods, and so they punished the boy, and the boy died. Anyway, the mother was very distraught, and she rang a bell for Kannon. Kannon is one of like the holiest of divinities in Japan, and I think on the 49th day or something like that, Kannon appeared on that grave where the boy was, and so it became a holy place, so a place where something terrible had happened. it became a holy place, and so that's when she planted a maple tree. And so that is the story of the maple tree and the deer. So the boy is supposed to be symbolized by the tree, and the deer is kind of looking at the tree kind of in a sad way. A lot of people who have, historians who have analyzed these images say, oh, the deer is looking at the tree kind of like feeling really sorry for the boy, feeling very sorry for the tragedy that occurred. So October in general is kind of like has like a grieving vibe, a loss vibe. Then we have the ribbon. Now the ribbon used to have things written such as autumn, autumn leaves, or maple. So again, the ribbon could be a wish for something bad not to occur. Maybe like we were saying, maybe someone is sick, maybe we're praying for someone not to be taken, maybe someone is in hospital. Like in general, it's like something to do with like health was here, health, loss, grieving of something, and so the wish is like, not to have to grieve over anything. For example, if it's not the loss of a person, if it's the loss of a job, to want something, a new job or something like that. Okay, now let's talk about the poem associated with the chef. The rain is pouring from the mountains with all the maple trees. I wonder if the deer are crying. So the poem associated with this is again connected to the same story. Usually we would get another card after this, like we would ask Spirit, what do we do about this? What do we do about this grief? Summary: October, the deer and the maple tree. There's a story where a boy accidentally kills a deer and he's punished, and out of his grave a maple tree is planted. The deer is very upset about what happened. So overall this means grief. The poems and the ribbons, they're all connected to autumn, the end of someone's life, rainy, sad, cloudy days, and just not feeling great and going through a loss. Now let's move on to November, the worst month to get a card from because everything is terrible. But that's okay. We're heading towards December, which is when everything gets fixed. Okay, so if we have been going through the October vibes and the November vibes, worry not, because December is coming. But yes, we have to talk about November and all these cards. Once again, you can see that the bird or the animal is not the first one. And in fact, you can see that for the first time ever, the ribbon is the third card and not the second card. Why? Because November is not great. Okay, so this set of cards is called Onotofu and the Willow. The willow being the tree, the willow. Yep. Now, I know what you're going to say. November is not the time when the willow is in has foliage. So this is what I was talking about when I started this part, and that a lot of people think that this used to be like the May cards, which would make sense because May, June, you would have like very strong winds anyway. And I guess that if you look at it from, a more general point of view, after all this bad stuff, you have the hope. And so this is probably why the good stuff was like at the beginning of the year, and then when winter comes, when autumn comes, and it gets darker. And let me tell you that October and November and December are really, really dark months. It's not until like February when it starts getting a little bit brighter. There's very little sunlight. A lot of people might experience the seasonal affective disorder, and it's very likely that back in the day this was even more so. And so this is probably why these cards are here, even though the willow is a May plant. It's here along with the winds and the storms, which are rare in November. They usually come around in September, but in September we were talking about the most special of all the flowers, so we couldn't put it in September, so it's here. Okay, so the bad stuff happens right before the hope card. Number one, the most important one, is Onotofu. Now in this version of the card, it's a calligrapher. It's someone who's very smart, and he's in the middle of the storm, but this is like a good person. But originally this card wasn't someone good. It was a thief that was hiding their face within the parasol, within the umbrella. This entire thing is like storms. Okay, this last one is the demon. Okay, this one here, that's like terrible things. This is lightning striking and everything is terrible. And this one is called the demon. This is like possibly the worst card to get ever. Has a very tower vibe. But anyway, originally this was a thief that was hiding their face, running away in the middle of a storm. Over time, it seems like people were like, I don't like this. I don't like getting this card with a thief on it. And so they changed it. So this card is new. We know that it's not like the ancient card, and a lot of things have been added, such as the frog. You know, a frog in November, no way. So whenever I see this frog, I always think about the poem that goes, what does the frog in the well know about the sea? Now, this is not connected to, like, traditionally not connected to these cards, but I do wonder if the reason why this frog randomly put in, you know, because everything has a meaning in the cards, why this frog was randomly put here in the devastation cards of November. And this is very this is very likely one of the cases. Like I said, in November, the frogs would be hibernating, right? They would not be out. So it just, these cards did not make sense for the month of November, probably closer to either September or May. Now, as for the plant, right, which we see, which is the willow, what does the willow represent? Well, the willow is a very strong tree, and it's planted by the riverbanks to prevent floods. And again, like I said, it's usually not, it doesn't have foliage in November. Now, as for the swallow, this bird is a swallow. The swallow is trying to take shelter in the willow tree. So the willow is just taking shelter, just like the geese over here were like running away from the cold weather, going to warmer places and seeking shelter. This one is also seeking shelter from the terrible storm. Now the ribbon, as usual, it doesn't have any words on it. Some of the words that used to be on this is really interesting, because usually it's just maple or autumn or something like that. The ones here are melancholy, slender, willow, of course, but like, you know, things that are kind of like scary, like scary things, because this whole month of November represents like just a storm, you know, going through the storm. Lastly, the demon. This is just called the demon. It's supposed to represent, you know, lightning striking, and so tower moment, everything goes wrong, everything is it's just bad stuff, bad luck, bad stuff, things falling apart, and just not good stuff. So there is no chef. Okay, all the other months have a chef. This one doesn't. This one has a person, an animal, a ribbon, and something called the demon. So this doesn't have a poem, but it's interesting because I was talking about Fujiwara no Taika for one of the other poems, and this Fujiwara no Taika also made a poem about the willow trees, and it says, all the willow tree leaves have fallen and the autumn wind howls. Summary, November. Onotofu and the willow tree. The willow tree are very resistant trees. The willow tree is planted by riverbanks to prevent floodings. Onotofu, the man, used to be a thief in the original cards, but people didn't like that, so they turned him into a calligrapher. The frog could be escaping or could be not in its element. The swallow in the second card is hiding from the storm. The ribbon has a meaning of melancholy, misery, slender, and the last card is called the demon. It's supposed to represent being in the middle of the storm. It's supposed to represent lightning striking. Just overall not a great vibe. Yay, we've made it to December. Yes, we're all happy to see you, December cards. This is great. Now the tree is the Paulownia tree. It's the tree where traditionally the phoenix, which is the animal here, perches, right, according to Chinese legend. The most important thing here is that yes, the color is purple. Yes, it's associated with nobility. The Paulownia crest was given to nobles by the emperor as a sign of protection. So, multipass, if you know what I'm talking about. You could just flash your Paulownia crest to anyone and people would be like, oh, they have the protection of the emperor. So overall, of these cards have a feel of being protected, of being okay. Things will be okay. And of course, the phoenix is resurrection, coming, being reborn from the ashes. Also, the phoenix is in Chinese lore, the ancestor to all the birds. When it comes to the Paulownia tree, it's a very resistant tree. It's a very strong tree, and this is why the phoenix could perch on it, because it was so strong. And so traditionally, when a girl was born, they would plant a Paulownia tree because it would grow really quickly. When the girl would get married, they would cut the tree and make a chest out of it so that they could keep their valuables. So like the kimonos and all that would easily be eaten by bugs and stuff like that. They could be put inside the Paulownia tree chest, and then they would be given as a marriage present for the girl that was born when the tree was planted. The tree was planted because the girl was born. You know what I'm saying. Okay. So, as you can see, there's no ribbon here. Usually there's ribbons here. There's no ribbon, but it's still like the second most important card in the game. So it's like it's more important than this one. But there's nothing specific about this that I could find. Finally, we have made it. We've made it to the chef. Now, there's no particular poem associated with the December cards. However, what we do have is once again the tale of Ise. I was talking about the tale of Ise when we talked about the iris flower in May. So now we have the Paulownia tree in this tale of Ise. And in that tale of Ise, there is a poem that is called Kiritsubo no Koi, and it goes, parting is so sad. The only thing that I want to leave with is life. So pretty much what this poem is saying is that at the end of my life, what I want to take with me is to be alive. So I don't want to die or something like that. And this is saying that, as you know, this is a card of protection, a card of resurrection, a card of you're going to make a comeback after whatever it is that happened. And remember, after the December cards, boom, you get the January cards again with the crane and the pine and everything lives forever. So yeah, perhaps if we have been experiencing all of this October, November kind of vibes, we will get a second chance. Okay, if we get the December cards, we'll get a second chance. Summary. December. Phoenix and the Paulownia tree. The Paulownia tree is very strong and resilient. The Paulownia tree used to be planted when a little girl was born and turned into a chest when she got married so that she could save her valuables there. The Paulownia tree was the crest that the emperor would give nobles so that they would be protected. And the phoenix is rising from the ashes. It's also the ancestor to all birds. I hope this has helped you. I hope that you give it a shot. I hope you give Hanafuda cards a shot. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you for watching. Goodbye. And just as I filmed this video, boom, I have manifested someone bringing me Yatsuhashi. So, of course, named after the famous tale, there are these, there it is. There are these sweets from Kyoto called Yatsuhashi. And this is one of the types of Yatsuhashi. So we have, apparently these are covered in chocolate of some sort. And yes, they look like this. Let's open one. This bar, there's a soft one and there's a hard one. The traditional one is the hard one like this. This one's already chopped. And it looks like the bridge, because that's what it means. Okay, let's try this one.